82 seconds. That is all it took. 82 seconds for three people who spent years protecting each other to start accusing each other of crimes in front of a congressional committee, on camera, under oath, with no way to take any of it back. Not a private meeting, not a sealed deposition, a public hearing in room 2154 of the Rayburn House office building with journalists in the back row and C-SPAN recording every word. 82 seconds for Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, and Kash Patel to realize that the Epstein Island files they thought were buried forever were about to become the only thing anyone would remember about this hearing. Watch what happens when the chairman asks the question none of them expected. Watch Trump's face when Patel says his name. Watch Bondi reach for a document she was not supposed to have. And watch 82 seconds of accusations that expose something nobody in that room was prepared to defend. You need to see this until the very end, because what happened in that hearing room is not just about three bad decisions. It is about a pattern, a deliberate, documented, coordinated pattern of hiding the same files, blaming different people, and hoping nobody would ever put all three testimonies side by side. If you are new here, subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because what you are about to see is the most important congressional testimony of this entire decade, and it is being buried by every major network that does not want you to connect these dots. Let me set the scene for you. House Oversight Committee, Room 2154, the same room where congressional investigators have extracted confessions from cabinet members, intelligence directors, and corporate executives for the last 40 years. Thursday morning, the hearing was listed on the official schedule as routine testimony regarding Department of Justice document retention policies. Routine. By the time this was over, that word would be permanently retired from this committee's vocabulary. Trump arrived first, no attorneys, no handlers, just two aides who stayed in the hallway. That should have been the first signal. Trump never shows up to congressional hearings without legal representation. He always brings counsel, always brings a media strategy, always brings someone who can object when questions go places he does not want them to go. Not today. Today he walked in alone and sat in the center chair at the witness table with his arms crossed and his jaw set in that expression he uses when he thinks he is about to dominate a room. Bondi arrived 6 minutes later with a briefcase and a legal pad. No team, no backup, just her. She sat 2 chairs to Trump's left and did not look at him when she sat down. Patel was the last to arrive, 11 minutes late, which is unusual for someone who built a career on military precision and bureaucratic punctuality. He apologized to the chairman, took the seat 2 chairs to Trump's right, and spent the first 30 seconds arranging papers in front of him that he would never actually reference during his testimony. The chairman, a congressman from Virginia with 16 years of oversight experience, sat at the center of the dais with a single manila folder in front of him. No staff whispering in his ear. No computer screen with talking points. Just a folder. He opened it exactly once during this entire hearing, and what came out of it destroyed every defense all 3 witnesses had prepared. The first 25 minutes were exactly what all 3 of them expected. Standard questions about document classification procedures, retention timelines, interagency communication protocols, the kind of technical policy discussion that makes C-SPAN viewers change the channel. Trump gave short answers, mostly variations of, "that was handled by staff," and "I do not recall specific timelines." Bondi gave longer answers, filled with legal terminology and references to DOJ standard operating procedures, the kind of answers designed to sound authoritative while saying absolutely nothing. Patel gave the longest answers, detailed explanations of bureaucratic processes, chain of custody protocols, the answers of someone who knows that if you talk long enough, the questioner will eventually move on to someone else. The chairman let them talk. He nodded. He took notes. He thanked them for their thoroughness. And then he asked the question that changed everything in that room. Mr. Patel, in your role as former Chief of Staff to the Acting Secretary of Defense, did you ever have access to files or documents related to Jeffrey Epstein's private island? The room temperature dropped. Patel's hands, which had been gesturing freely during his previous answers, went still. He looked at the chairman for 3 full seconds before answering. I had access to many classified files during my tenure. I cannot speak to specific content without violating security protocols. The chairman nodded slowly. I am not asking about classified content. I am asking about access. Did you, yes or no, have access to files related to Epstein Island? Patel's voice got quieter. I would need to review my access logs to confirm specific file designations. Mr. Patel, this is not a difficult question. Yes or no? Another pause. Longer this time. Yes? The word hung in the air like smoke. If you have made it this far and this matters to you, subscribe now and hit the bell, because what comes next is the part that would never make it to cable news without being edited into meaninglessness. The chairman turned to Trump. Mr. President, same question. Did you, during your time in office, have access to files or documents related to Jeffrey Epstein's private island? Trump leaned forward. I had access to everything. I was the president. That is not an answer to my question. It is exactly an answer. Presidents have access to all classified materials. That is how classification works. So yes, you had access to Epstein Island files? Trump's tone sharpened. I had access to intelligence briefings. I do not sit around reading files about private islands. I had a country to run. But the files existed? A lot of files exist. That does not mean I read them. The chairman made a note. Then he turned to Bondi. Attorney General Bondi, same question. During your tenure as Florida Attorney General and your current role as U.S. Attorney General, have you had access to files or documents related to Epstein Island? Bondi's answer was immediate. Yes. No hesitation, no qualification, just yes. Trump's head turned toward her. Patel looked up from his papers. The chairman leaned back in his chair. Can you elaborate on the nature of that access? Bondi opened her briefcase. She pulled out a document. She did not hand it to anyone. She just held it. During my time as Florida AG, my office handled multiple investigations that intersected with federal cases involving Jeffrey Epstein. Those investigations generated files. Some of those files referenced activity on Epstein's private island. I had access to those files because they were generated by my office. And as U.S. Attorney General, I have access to all DOJ files related to closed federal investigations. That includes Epstein-related materials. The chairman nodded. Thank you for that clarity. Then he opened the manila folder. He pulled out a single sheet of paper. He held it up so the camera could see it, but nobody at the witness table could read it. This is a document access log from the National Archives. It covers a 3-year period from 2019 to 2022. It lists every individual who requested access to files stored under the designation Epstein Island Investigation Materials. He looked at all 3 witnesses. All 3 of your names are on this list. Drop a comment right now and tell me if you think any of them knew the other 2 had accessed the same files, because what happens next suggests they absolutely did not. Trump spoke first. That does not mean anything. Lots of people access lots of files. That is what files are for. The chairman did not look away from him. Mr. President, according to this log, you personally requested access to these files on 4 separate occasions. The last request was made 7 months ago. I do not remember that. The requests were logged under your personal identification code. They required biometric verification. Then someone used my credentials. Are you suggesting your biometric data was compromised? Trump's jaw tightened. I am suggesting I do not remember requesting those files. The chairman turned to Patel. Mr. Patel, you accessed these same files 11 times over an 18-month period. The most recent access was 3 weeks ago. Patel's face went pale. I accessed many files in my role. I cannot confirm specific access without reviewing my activity logs. I just told you the activity log 11 times, 3 weeks ago. Do you deny that? I do not deny accessing files. I deny any improper use of those files. What would constitute improper use? Patel did not answer. The chairman turned to Bondi. Attorney General Bondi, you accessed these files 6 times, twice as Florida AG, 4 times in your current role. The most recent access was yesterday. Bondi did not flinch. I accessed those files as part of an ongoing DOJ review of case integrity. That access was authorized and documented. What case integrity review? I am not at liberty to discuss ongoing internal reviews. Is this review related to this hearing? Bondi paused. That pause told everyone in the room the answer was yes. Subscribe now, because what happens next is the moment this entire hearing shifts from document access questions to direct accusations, and nobody in that room is ready for what comes out of their own mouths. The chairman set the access log down. Let me ask a different question. Mr. Patel, in your 11 accesses of these files, did you share any information from those files with anyone outside of official channels? No. Did you share any information with Mr. Trump? Patel hesitated. I provided briefings to the President on various national security matters during my tenure. Did those briefings include information from the Epstein Island files? I provided context when relevant. That is not an answer. Patel's voice got harder. I provided the President with information he needed to make informed decisions. If that information came from those files, it was within my authority to share it. The chairman turned to Trump. Mr. President, did Mr. Patel brief you on the contents of the Epstein Island files? Trump looked at Patel. Then he looked at the chairman. I do not recall specific briefings about Epstein. You do not recall? I received hundreds of briefings. I cannot remember every topic. Did Mr. Patel ever mention Jeffrey Epstein's island in any context? Trump's tone shifted. If he did, it was probably in passing. In passing about what? I do not remember. The chairman looked at Patel. Mr. Patel, the President just said you briefed him in passing about Epstein Island. Do you recall that briefing? Patel's hands gripped the edge of the table. I recall providing context on various matters. I do not recall specific conversations about Epstein Island. So either you are lying or the President is lying. Neither of them responded. The chairman turned to Bondi. Attorney General Bondi, did either of these men share information from the Epstein Island files with you? Bondi looked at both of them. Then she looked at the chairman. Yes. The room went still, not silent. Still. Trump's posture straightened. Patel's eyes closed for a fraction of a second. Journalists in the back row stopped typing and just stared. The chairman leaned forward. Which one? Bondi opened the document she had pulled from her briefcase earlier. Both. She slid the document across the table toward the chairman. This is a memo dated April 2023. It summarizes information provided to me by Mr. Patel regarding files he accessed during his tenure in the Defense Department. That information included references to individuals named in Epstein Island investigation materials. The chairman picked up the memo. He read it in silence. Then he looked at Patel. Mr. Patel, did you provide this information to Attorney General Bondi? Patel stared at the document. I provided information in the course of interagency coordination. I did not characterize it as related to Epstein Island. But it was related to Epstein Island. It may have originated from those files, but the context was broader. What was the context? Patel did not answer. The chairman looked at Bondi. You said both of them shared information with you. What did Mr. Trump share? Bondi pulled a second document from her briefcase. In June 2024, during a private meeting at Mar-a-Lago, President Trump referenced specific names that he said appeared in sealed DOJ files related to Epstein. He asked me if those files could be unsealed. The chairman's expression did not change. What names? I am not at liberty to disclose that without violating grand jury secrecy rules. Were those names in the Epstein Island files? Yes, Trump slammed his hand on the table. That is a lie. Bondi did not look at him. It is documented. I filed a memo the same day. It is in DOJ records. Trump stood up. You filed a memo about a private conversation. I file memos about all conversations that involve potential legal issues. There was no legal issue. I asked a question. You asked if sealed grand jury files could be unsealed. That is a legal question. I documented it. Trump's voice got louder. You documented a private conversation to cover yourself when you knew this hearing was coming. Bondi finally looked at him. I documented a conversation where the former president asked me to unseal files that implicate people who are still alive and still powerful. If you are still watching, you understand that what you just witnessed is not political theater. This is three people who protected each other for years, realizing that protection just ended. Trump sat back down. His face was red. His hands were shaking slightly. Patel was staring at the table. Bondi was staring at the chairman. The chairman let the silence sit for 10 full seconds. Then he spoke. Let me make sure I understand the timeline. Mr. Patel accessed Epstein Island files 11 times and shared information from those files with both the President and the Attorney General. President Trump accessed those same files 4 times and asked the Attorney General to unseal them. Attorney General Bondi accessed those files 6 times, documented conversations with both of these men, and is now testifying under oath that both of them shared information they should not have shared. He paused. Does anyone want to correct that summary? Nobody spoke. The chairman continued. Here is what I want to know. These files are sealed. They are classified. They contain names of individuals who were either witnesses, victims, or subjects of federal investigations related to Jeffrey Epstein's activities. Access to these files is restricted. Sharing information from these files is illegal. And yet all 3 of you accessed them, and all 3 of you shared information from them. He looked at each of them in turn. So, my question is simple. Who ordered you to look at those files? Because I do not believe all 3 of you independently decided to access the same classified materials, share information with each other, and then lie about it in front of this committee. Trump spoke first. Nobody ordered me to do anything. I was the president. I had authority to review any classified material.